Hello.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Okay,
The
cool.
microphone is working.
I had some trouble with the mic there for a minute, but welcome and
Welcome.
thank you for agreeing to do this with me today.
And thank you for agreeing to host this panel or interview.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. We're talking with Ron S. Friedman, who is an author of some note. I have a bio that I wrote for his story, Raiders of the Lost World, as presented in the Gunsmoke and Dragonfire anthology. Before I get started, I just want to point out to any viewers that this is for our Kickstarter. We are trying to support the Kickstarter and bring this anthology out into the world. So if you're listening and you're moved to pledge, I believe there is a pledge button that is attached to the viewer screen somewhere. There also is a chat function if you want to talk to us and ask us any questions, right? Just feel free to type it in and we will do our best to answer. All right, so intro.
Thank you.
Ron is an Israeli-Canadian writer who adds some genuine star power to this anthology with this hybrid pulp fiction tale. His novel, Typhoon Time, was an Amazon.ca #1 bestseller in time travel. His collection, Escape Velocity, was a Calgary Herald #1 bestseller and a #1 Kobo bestseller in space opera. And his short story, Game Not Over, was an Aurora Award finalist in 2016. And for those who may not know, the Auroras are basically our equivalent of the Hugos and Nebulas in Canada. His work has appeared in Galaxy's Edge, Daily Science Fiction, and numerous other magazines and anthologies. He has co-edited 3 anthologies himself and received 10, count them 10, honorable mentions in the Writers of the Future competition. I have 1. A classic overachiever. He has also received an Aurora for Best Fan-Related Work and was nominated again this year for his Quora blog on astronomy and planetary science, which has had more than 1.7 million views. In his day job, he is a senior information tech analyst who served during the Gulf War as an NCO in intelligence in the Israeli Air Force. Plus, he's a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, the IFWA, SF Canada, and a former board member for the Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy Association. If he ever sits down for a minute, I imagine you might be able to reach him on his blog, ronsfriedman.wordpress.com, or on Facebook or Twitter. And I will put his website in the chat so that if anybody wants to check it out. Now, let me know if I got anything wrong. I was just so impressed by...
No, it sounded a lot more fancier than what it really is.
Everyone always says that, but I'm impressed. No, that's really cool. You've done a lot in the field, and you've helped others, obviously, as well as advanced your own career. And that's, hats off to you, because I think that's great.
Thank you. I'm feeling humble because I really don't feel like a success story, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about myself.
Yes, please do. Tell us about yourself and your background and, who...
Yes,
yeah.
Some of the listeners may notice I have an accent. I'm originally from Israel. The story that I submitted to the Gunsmoke and Dragonfire, Raiders of the Lost World, was inspired, as the name may suggest, by Indiana Jones and also The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. So it's old-fashioned action-adventure story. I had lots of fun writing it. It's pure fun. It's set up in World War I, but in early World War I, 2014, in South America, in British Guiana, where a British pilot, this old biplane airplanes, is flying above the jungle and encounter a German big Zeppelin. And as he was entangled with the Zeppelin, his airplane was attacked by a but the cycle. It's a big dinosaur, flying dinosaur, and it crash landed, and that's where the story actually started. So I served in the Israeli army. I was in the Air Force. I was a flying cadet. Now I didn't finish the course, but I did happen to fly a Piper. It's a small propeller airplane. So I have a little bit experience in that field. And when I saw the submission, this story could actually fit this submission. I mean, it's not exactly Wild West, but it's not very far ahead, maybe a couple of decades later. And it still have the same feeling of something old, steampunkish. And yeah, it's a crazy story. A lot of things happen there.
Yeah. I thought that was, you've got some figures of history appearing. I'm not going to give too many spoilers away for that, but I thought that was really interesting. And I like the way you combined a lot of different elements of different pulp fiction genres. I mean, to me, it was clear it was totally a pastiche to honor all of that. And I loved it. And I think whether or not it's a Western depends on your definition of a Western. It certainly fits the Western themes.
And it's in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, that is true. South America notwithstanding, but yeah, it's I don't know why I did a foreword for the anthology, and I was looking at, okay, if I'm going to pick stories that are definitively speculative fiction, right, but also definitively Westerns, right? What is a Western? What do I mean by that, right? So there's 7 different types of Western stories that I don't remember a film dude whose name I should remember identified, and you cover a lot of the themes there. The big one being the one he referred to as the Pacific Union story, which is to say people go into a strange area and try to establish a new technology or a new communication process where there is none, right? And I liked that whole intrepid explorer element going on there, and that's why I decided that, despite the fact that there are no tumbleweeds rolling by, it works. So
well, there are some not tumbleweeds, but there are South America jungle.
You bet. Yes, and the wilderness is as much of a character, I think, in many ways, as the characters are. The environment is its own challenge.
Yeah, and I also try to combine some other element. May resemble a little bit Cowboys and the Aliens. If anybody saw the movie or the graphic novel, so I tried to mesh it all, and I think I tried to break all the rules pretty much. This one, but it still came out as something that had a lot of fun writing, and people read it, so that it's a lot of fun reading and see what the reactions are once it's out.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I loved it. I love the way you did all that. Yeah. So I really can't wait to share it with the world. I really hope that people support the anthology, because I want it to get out there. It's a great story.
So click on this button to support the anthology.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just going to kind of throw questions at you, and if there's anything you don't want to answer, then feel free to change the subject and let me know. But I thought, okay, so this is never an easy question for a writer to answer, and so feel free to go and wander in your answer as much as you want. But I asked this of everybody else, so I figured it's only fair. What first inspired you to become a writer, and when did you know that you were?
Okay, so that's a long story.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, I'm an immigrant. I came to Canada in 2002. Before I came, I was, in addition to being, a full-time employee in the IT field, and have a family with a wife, and now I have 2 kids. They're pretty grown. They're turning 18 now. So when I came to Canada, I was a gamer. So I used to play video games. I used to play a lot of D&D. And once my kids were born,
we have a...
I cannot play games anymore.
Okay.
So can I write? Because I like to be creative. Sure, you can. Now, I noticed that I lost the video.
Yes, I see that.
So,
It just went blank there. I wonder what's... I can still hear your voice, though. Is it... I wonder...
if I look at the interview, I can still see myself, but I don't see myself in the interview. So maybe I'll just switch. If anybody don't see me, then you can listen to me and enjoy Diane's face. So once I came to Canada, I decided to get into creative writing. Now, on top of that, it was a very uphill battle, is that English is my second language. Now, I knew English before I came here, but still, it was not my first language. Absolutely. So in 2005, I joined an organization here in Calgary called IFWA, Imagine Fiction Writers Association. We have some members in Manitoba and Ontario, but it's primarily in Alberta. This is a writers' critique group, and we had all kind of initiatives there, and they started going to convention. I took also a course, creative writing course, and I started to sit down and write short stories, mostly because they're shorts. So at the beginning was pretty rough. In 2007, I remember I started submitting story, and the rejection I got and it's all my fault because of the cover letter, but the rejection was in the form, you don't want to be a writer, choose another hobby. So it was pretty brutal. And it was because my cover letter was horrendous, so it was pretty much apologizing for submitting. So it's a part of it my fault. But I started to writing, and in time, my story were critiqued. It was slowly but surely, my writing level became better and better. My English level, my confidence in writing confident and also speaking confident improved. And I think we were talking about 2007, 2008. In 2011, I sold my first short story. And in that year, I actually sold 2 short stories. And I got my first honorable mention in Writers of the Future contest. So for those who don't familiar with Writers of the Future contest, it's a very, very fancy contest to win. Like if you win, you get $5,000, you fly to Hollywood, very fancy ceremony with bow ties and everything. Very good for new writer. I never won, but I got honorable mention, which means I got 10 certificates. So the first story, I think, appeared in Daily Science Fiction, and I also had an anthology by the way that he came. It had a time travel story about a modern military unit going back in time to ancient times and what happened to them. 2015, in total, I submitted, published 14 short stories, and this March it's going to be number 15. And I also published one novel. Because the novel also took a long time. I got tons of rejections. Tried like 5 or 6 publishers in Canada. It was lost in the slash pile in one big New York, one of the big 5. It's basically lost, so I can say I was not rejected.
Cool.
And so last year my first novel came out. It's called Typhoon Time. It's about a modern submarine that travels back in time to pre-World War II, trying to prevent the war on the Holocaust. And so it was an uphill battle, a lot of rejections, until finally I wouldn't say made it, but made some progress.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've made a bit of a splash. You've got some serious attention from people anyway, which is, like that's really cool that you've been number 1 on Amazon. That's,
that's Amazon.ca, so that's not Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Still nice.
Yeah, I know lots of people who would, be really just impressed with that honor. That's what they're, I know so many indie writers. I'm a hybrid. I deal with both indie and traditionally published writers a lot, and they're like, that's what they want. So that's really cool. And I also have the greatest admiration for people who write with English with English as their second language, right? You're not alone, right? In this anthology, Ricardo Victoria is born and raised Mexican, and obviously his first language is Spanish, right? So yeah, right. And I'm like, I took French to grade 12, and when I'm in Quebec, I can get along well enough to ask where the store is, But to write in French, I just can't even imagine. So that impresses the heck out of me. And I realized that immigrating kind of it's Canada. You got to speak French or English to get along, but yeah.
And I took my novel and some of the story to a few workshops, and I was told, why don't you write in Hebrew, my mother tongue, and then have somebody translate it to you? But I prefer to write in English because I live in Canada, I work in Canada, my life is in Canada. So this is a good opportunity to improve my English.
Fair enough.
So I try to kill two birds with one shot.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Improve my English and have a novel out. And besides that, English is a much, much bigger market.
Also true. Yeah, that's a fact. You can pretty much sell an English text anywhere in the world, and obviously Hebrew's audience is somewhat limited, right? So I mean, you can still sell, I'm sure, Hebrew all over the world, but in much smaller communities, I would guess, right, outside of Israel. So. Right. Yeah, I also think that language in a way shapes ideas, right? This is something that we talk about a lot, obviously, in Canada, right? The fact that being this bilingual country, in a way, the culture of Francophone Canada is very different from the culture of Anglophone Canada. And there are things that don't translate well across the two languages. So if you're not coming from that language originally, you may not be communicating to your readers what you're trying to communicate, right? So,
I think, as I said, even before I came to Canada, I knew English. Right. In 1993, after my army service, I decided to do a trip, travel the world as a backpacking. So I went to Thailand, Singapore, and then I spent 6 months in Australia and New Zealand.
Fantastic.
So initially, first couple of months, 3 months in New Zealand and Australia, I was thinking in Hebrew. I was thinking in Hebrew, and I was translating it to English. So it took time, and the conversation was scribbler's. And at some point, I was able to start thinking in English. So once you can speak, not just speak, but also think in English, then the conversation flows much better. So I think that the point was actually before I came to Canada, when I was in Australia at some point. So now I can say I can think in two languages.
That's fantastic.
And I can read between them. So that's an advantage to have. And once you can think in a language, then you can communicate in that language, either writing or talking, and it's much better than that. The big challenge I had, especially in my first few years when I tried to writing, one is idioms. So the idiom, especially in North America, and some of these are now neighbors are doing drums. It's the background.
Right.
It's not my kids. I hope no, they don't have drums. Where were we? So once you think in two languages and you can communicate in the other languages, you're improving. Your communication is improving, and the main challenges I had is one is called idiom, and the other one, it was more reflected in writing, is that a lot of words have there are words that have similar sounding, but you write them have different meaning, and you write them different.
Yes, yeah.
There.
Homonyms. There. Yes. Yeah.
So this was a big challenge for me in my first year when I was attempting writing. So I had to do a lot of revisions and a lot of rewrites, and I can submit something to review. I got lots of correct text. When you got my manuscript, it wasn't that bad, I think.
Sure.
Had you got something for me 10 years ago, it would have looked a lot different, with a lot more grammar and errors. So it takes time. English is improving. I still need copy editing anytime when I write something. Could be either done by the editors or with some friends or people from a critique group.
I admire your patience and your determination. That's That is really cool that you stopped.
Yeah, I mean, flattered here. I am almost embarrassed. I don't want to say.
It's a good object lesson for all of us because we get discouraged, right? Every writer collects rejections, right? And but it's so hard. It's so personal, and you're like, oh, but I thought this was my baby, and it's beautiful. Why don't you just love it? And it's not how it works, right? So it's hard.
Got 50 rejections. I think I sold my first one.
Yeah, that's I'm seriously impressed that you stubborned it out like that. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's either this or go back to gaming.
Sure, that makes sense to me. Absolutely, why not? Oh, okay, I died. Whatever. Let's start over. Makes sense. I guess that in your gaming experience then must have, like, I haven't read the story, right? But did that inspire your story, Game Not Over, that was a finalist for the Aurora in 2016?
Game Not Over, yeah. So I was thinking about the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the story for this anthology. So it wasn't really inspired, but Game Not Over, yeah, it's very, very heavily. I tried not to mention any specific games, but it's very, very heavily influenced by D&D style or D&D style video games or role-playing game. Yeah, it has a twist, of course. So it started as a fantasy gaming story and it ended up as a science fiction.
That's awesome. I'm a long-time D&D gamer and tabletop RPG person myself. So yeah, I can.
Yeah, that's a story that's very on the edge.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
Behind the Robert Heinlein, so I know. So my name and then Robert Heinlein. Oh, okay.
There's something, eh? There's something that you gotta almost frame that. Yes, it was next to Robert Heinlein. Oh my god. That's cool. I admire that too. That's excellent. Tell me about this blog. I took a brief look at it, but I didn't get a chance to search through it. Your Quora blog on astronomy and planetary science.
Okay, so that's a Quora. Quora is a website. I think there are people who try to remember where they come. I think they came from Facebook, and they started their own company. It's basically a site for question and answers. So it's called Quora.com, www.quora.com. It has about, I'm not sure now, it's about 190 million people visitors per month, so it's pretty heavy. It's not as big as Reddit, but it's like 1/3 to 1/2 of that. And I also write a little bit in Reddit, but in Quora I'm much more successful. So yeah, so in 2017, so I wrote a lot of science fiction. I write a lot of science fiction. So for science fiction, you need to know the science,
right,
about what happened in different planets, in different moons, in gravity, how spaceship works, how astrophysics works. And it's still very, very similar to the Wild West. Like when we go to Mars or Titan and start colonizing, or not colonizing, or settle on other planets or other moons. The challenges are going to be very, very similar to the challenges people in the Wild West felt. Like when they had to, of course, it will be a lot more extreme, and there are no natives, so there is not the bad part of the whole story of settling the West. So if you go to barren planet that maybe only have bacteria, it starts to look like better. So anyway, it was just after I joined CIFWA, I was accepted to a workshop in Wyoming astrophysics or astronomy department, the University of Wyoming. So it's a course for science fiction writers. It's called Launchpad Astronomy Workshop. Each year they select 15 science fiction writers or writers in general who are interested in astronomy, and they do a 1-week crash course. They go to see the telescope and they teach you about that. So after that, I started writing some. I start answering questions on astronomy in Quora. And one question in particular, there was one about Jupiter. I was trying to argue that somebody asked if Jupiter is a planet or no, it's orbit the sun. So I start looking into it, and it's almost like a binary system.
Mm-hmm.
So the center of gravity between the Sun and Jupiter. So the Sun and Jupiter are both orbiting a central point, and like all other planets, that central point is inside the Sun. In Jupiter case, is just outside the Sun. It's still very, very close to the Sun because the Sun is a lot more massive, but it's outside the Sun.
Sure, yeah.
So that was shortly after Pluto. There was a big fuss about Pluto. Maybe it's not a planet, it's not planets. So everybody was very, very emotional about that. And then I said something about, maybe Jupiter is not exactly the definition of a star, of a planet. I mean, it's not a star, it's much smaller. It doesn't emit energy like a sun. So it's not a binary system.
Right.
It's not a binary star system. But it is something, maybe it's of its own category. And that answer got something like 1 million views.
Huh.
And then I wrote about something else about what is better, to colonize Mars or Titan, and I start to actually list all the difference between Mars and Titan.
That's a good question. I've often wondered the answer myself. What do you think?
What I think, or maybe I should read
I definitely will.
Titan is a lot friendlier to human, except for the extreme cold. Mm-hmm. Because it has an atmosphere, it has carbohydrates, hydrocarbons, and the atmosphere is very, at least in pressure, is not much more than air, and it has a protection from radiation, so it's a lot nicer. But then again, it's much, much further away. Using current technology, you can get to Mars in about 7 months, or you could do even 3 months. To Titan, it's something like 7 years.
Right.
So that makes Mars a better option, at least in current technology. But I have a short story collection. A lot of my stories that got honorable mention are here in Escape Velocity, and many of the stories are taking place on Titan.
Fantastic. I might have to check that out.
Like the Wild West, I didn't want to call it Wild West in space, so I call it like Mad Max in space.
Nice.
But it's very similar to Wild West. You know what you do with all the environment, this breakdown. Now you don't have power. Now you don't have this. You don't have water.
Wonderful. No, that's cool. I'm really intrigued. I'm definitely gonna have to go and check out your books because I'm all about this. I think this whole idea is, okay, we got to get off this rock, right? There are too many close calls just in terms of the cosmic events out there. Like, what was it? I think, less than less than 20,000 years ago, another star went through our solar system, right? I'm like, okay, no, this is it. We have to get off this rock. We cannot have all our eggs in one basket. But the technology is so limited right now, comparatively. We're just starting to realistically plan for it, I think. And it seems so overwhelming and intimidating, right? We know that everything but Earth is a huge hostile environment. The best option we have is a place that is, either very not suited due to gravitational and atmospheric elements and whether or not they're going to have the resources we need, right? Or some place that's literally 7 years away, at best.
Yeah, and Titan is also not the ideal.
Right.
It could be, right now in Alberta, and I know a lot of people in North America are going through an extreme cold wave.
Yeah.
It could get to maybe minus 40.
Yeah, that's balmy. It'll never reach that on Titan, right? Like it'll never get that hot.
It will not get warm in Titan. Yeah. It's about minus 170 Celsius. To how much it is in the Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold. So there could be planets similar to Earth and other solar system, but reaching them, we're talking light years. That's a very, very long time.
Right, and we're nowhere near the technology to do that yet. Definitely. So
yeah, but we should be in a few decades maybe able to go to Mars and then experience the wild whales challenges on Mars with technology. I don't know if you saw the movie The Martian.
Yes. I hope to be alive to see it. The first Mars colony. That would be something that would be very cool to experience in my life, just to see it, just to know it's out there.
The challenges is mostly right now political. It's the technology exists. I mean, it's not exist right now, but we have the knowledge how to build the technology. It's a matter of priorities and how to prioritize the spending. It's a matter of money.
Right, of course.
And prioritizing. And it's not just a matter of survival. It's like we are a species that we came out of Africa. We go to so we can stay in one place, or we can diverse and still stay in that place, but go to send some people and go to other places. Like when we reached America, and there's a good thing and bad thing about that. But generally speaking, for humanity, I think it was a good thing. Not for everyone. Mouth don't have anything, because but mostly some bacteria. So we can create a new branch of humanity on other places, other celestial bodies, and it's still Earth is going to be the best place for us.
Of course.
We don't, it's not like this is lost, we should leave. It's no, not at all. Like people stay in Europe. Some people went to America. It's not that people say, yeah, Europe is lost and we should go to America. Or when we went out of Africa 100,000 years ago, oh, Africa is lost, we better go out of Africa. No, people still live in Africa, people still live in Europe. And now we have people in America, in Australia, and other places. And we should go for the next step.
Absolutely. I do think it's important to reach beyond our existing limits and environment and see what the next thing is. I would say that this is one of the things that tends to define us as a species. Right, so myself.
Yeah, we are a species of explorers.
So you were saying a little bit about your family. So I caught you're married and you said you had kids. I didn't catch how many kids. I think you said that they're kind of grown and doing their own thing now. Okay.
Yeah, they are grade 12 now, so they're finishing grade 12 in June. They are both 18 years old, twins, a boy and a girl, and no, they are not identical. It's a joke. When they were little, a lot of people were confused. Oh, twins. Yeah, it's a boy and a girl. Are they identical? No, they are not identical.
Right, yeah.
So we counted when they were babies. Now it's they're pretty distinct. So they are two separate human beings. Yeah, so now they are getting ready. They have the test. They need to figure out what to do. The typical YA dilemma. What should they do next? Like in Harry Potter or Divergence. What should they select in my career? What to do next? It's a big dilemma for small kids.
Absolutely.
Or for young people these days. Yeah, and then my daughter and kids, they also have they publish a short story.
Oh, cool!
Like it was a short story contest a few years back, and they got honorable mention and the story there. And my daughter, she's also do drawing. On Facebook, I put a picture of her that she drew last weekend. She now has a little time, so she
excellent.
Try to learn how to do that.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
Maybe she could do the cover for my next novel.
Why not? You gotta pay somebody to make your cover. You might as well, pay people who you care about if they're gonna do the job you want them to do, right? So that's pretty cool too. Well, that's great. Creativity runs in the family, obviously.
Yeah, like you, I'm a hybrid writer. Some things I self-publish, some things I go with the publisher. I think this is probably the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you go with a publisher, you get a little bit less money, but then you are exposed to a wider audience.
Yes.
So you need to be the hybrid. Keep it both ways.
Yeah, that's exactly why I decided to do that approach myself, right? Because the dilemma.
Don't do just one.
Right. Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. So, okay, you've been involved in like a million different related science fiction and fantasy organizations. Now, okay, it's a funny thing. I've been a member of SF Canada and the CSFFA for a few years now, right? And I don't know what goes on, right? Like I get the mailing list stuff sometimes, and mostly I'm kind of at a loss. So where is the big meeting? What happens? Tell me, what goes on there.
I don't know. Okay, from SF Canada, I don't see a lot of activity for them. I've been a member for a few years, 3 years or so. They have on the website, they have a list or mailing list that you send email and then it's shared with everybody else. So some of the email have some information about different convention or different contests, different things that you can learn from. Other things, when I had my book launch, and this is one of the reasons I was an Amazon.ca #1 bestseller in my tiny little category, time travel, is because I belong to all these organizations. So I asked SF Canada, I told, yeah, this is my novel, it's coming out on this date. And the publisher, they have their own mailing list and Twitter account. So you do the Twitter, Instagram. Instagram, I don't know, it's mostly Twitter, I tell you, but what's work with SF Canada, that some of the people in SF Canada, they sent the notice about the note of the, I don't know if I should call it a press release, but my informing them that I have a novel out, they send it to their readership.
Right.
So once you belong to a number of organization, and some people in each organization are willing to help you, like you're willing to help them or other people when they need it. So when my book was out, some people sent it to their readers from IFWA, from SF Canada, also in the States, but in the States it's only a little dent. It wasn't.
Right.
Probably sold more in the States than in Canada, but in Canada, what I sold made me #1. In the States, it's
yeah,
because it's a much bigger market.
Absolutely.
But because you belong to an organization and sometimes they help other members, I see this as an advantage. It's like a networking. You help them, they help you.
Well, how do I connect to the community? Like, do I need to spend more time on the website? Like, I don't
take it on the mailing list. I don't know. I don't spend too much time there as well. Yeah, so that's SF Canada. I also belong to CIFWA, which is a North American organization. So they really helped me to get to this workshop in the States, in Wyoming. So if I wasn't a member with them, I wouldn't get into that workshop. IFWA is a good organization to be in, but it's mostly, you can benefit more if you live in Calgary. And another thing is a convention. I'm one of the organizers of When Words Collide Festival. So this is something if you are a writer, it's a festival that focuses on the literacy. Unlike the big media convention that have like 100,000 people, like a Comic Expo, Comic-Con like, and those may mostly focus on actors, media, and comics. There's still literary, you can still sell a lot of books there. But the focus is not literacy. Right. When Words Collide, the focus is literacy. It's not just science fiction and fantasy, it's mostly all the commercial genres and also some non-fiction. So that happens in Calgary every year, and it's limited to 750 people. And this is it's like, I won't say ReaderCon, we don't have that many high-profile visitors. But this is, we have a lot of people from all across Canada, from British Columbia. And this is something you may want to consider.
I definitely do. I'm in BC. It's not that far for me to go to Calgary.
It's not that far, and it's a very awesome convention. You can learn a lot. You can also submit, and you also want to do it soon because every year we sold out at around the May or June. So if you want to, we're right now, we are, even though it's in August, it's already 50% sold out.
Do you happen to have a link handy that we could post in the chat in case other people are interested?
The chat.
Yeah.
Okay, I have some issue with logging in.
Oh.
I can send you through Facebook.
Sure, and then I'll just put it in the chat. Then I guess that makes sense. Great.
Okay.
Perfect. Oh, yes. Okay.
So this is it's limited to 750 people, and about 50% of the attendees are readers, and 50% are writers. And writers love readers.
Yes, we do. Yeah. All right, I have to type it because it was sent in Facebook, so it gave me a bunch of.
It's not words collide. It's worlds collide. It's words.
Yeah, when words collide.org. Yes, and thank you for pointing that out because I had spelled it wrong. Okay, when words collide.org.
Yes, and that one is also already 50% sold, and it's really awesome. It has about 120 panels. About 50% of them are for readers, and 50% are for writers. And we have some agents, publishers coming there. A lot of many writers, and we have some from the States, but mostly Canadians.
Fantastic. I've heard about this convention before from other writers that I know, so I'm definitely going to try to make it this year.
Yeah, and you can submit panels and be 10 pounds.
Cool.
And now, like a comic expo, last year I went to a couple of conventions in the States. One is the Florida SuperCon and Salt Lake Comic Conventions, the FanX. Yeah, they are very friendly to writers.
Fantastic.
I'll do a few panels and sold out my books.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that a lot of other writers will probably be watching this at some point because that's the kind of, well, I don't know. This is how I tend to spend my time on YouTube, right? I watch a lot of videos.
Yeah, and also readers.
Right, and readers. But we hope anyway, that would be best because, we always want to talk to our readers. So, yeah. And do you have anything coming up aside from this anthology in the near future that you'd like to tell us about?
I'm currently, yeah. So when we talk about earlier about Writers of the Future, Writers of the Future has I got 10 honorable mention, and honorable mention is the industry way of telling you are not right there. You're close, but not good enough. I told them, I'm not going to use it a swear word, but I'll say, oh, you know what? I'll show you. And I published most 8 of these 10 stories here in my short story collections. So now they are out. And hope to finish it by July, but the 50 years anniversary to the moon landing, and potentially self-publish it. The story takes most of the story of the short story are taking place on Titan and Celadus, but the story I'm working on right now is set on Mars.
Fantastic.
So this is what I'm working on. The reason I chose Mars, initially I started writing the story about Titan, but on Quora, where I now have 2 million views, when I answer question on Mars, people are more interested in Mars. So I decided to try to do a Mars story rather than Titan for now.
Well, it feels closer. We hear about it a lot in the news. I can see why people tend to be more like, okay, looking to that as the next thing, right? So
yeah, so there I'm talking about a lot about it. So again, it's a settlement, a couple of settlements in Mars. So I'm talking there about things that right now are probably going to be very prominent here on Earth. One is genetic engineering and artificial intelligence.
Of course, the big topics right now. Yeah,
it's not so big because the news are not. These are the big topics, but they are not big on the news. But this is the not other talk with other thing with talking politics right now. Pretty much diversion, but the big things that are happening other than climate change, it's artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Like we are going to start altering humans, and I don't know what's going to happen with genetic engineering. So I talked about a little bit about artificial intelligence in the Game Not Over. So the novel I'm writing on now is set in the same universe as Escape to Velocity, but on a different planet.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to checking out your work. And thank you so much for coming and agreeing to do this with me today.
Thank you for hosting us. And I look forward to the anthology.
Yes, it's going to be so good. I'm so excited about it. I can't wait. There's so many good writers. Do check it out. Do support
also, are we going to release also a paper version?
Yes, we will. I'm hoping to have it out at the same time. The proposed release date is March 15th. But in part, how fast that happens does depend on the Kickstarter. So that is why we are doing that. So support it, guys. Spread the word. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be worth it. You're going to love it.
What she said.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for all of you who joined us. I see that we actually have a pretty sizable audience. So I really appreciate that. And we'll see you next time. For those who, you can tell those who may have missed it, this will air on my YouTube channel sometime in the next couple of days, probably around 9 a.m. That's when I've been doing it. So either today or tomorrow, depending on how quickly I get it up there, right? And there will be more interviews throughout the month. The next one that's scheduled is, I think, on the 6th or 7th. I am going to be interviewed by our Daniel Lester, so he's going to turn the tables on me and put me in the hot seat. So it's going to be fun. But I hope to get more coming up as we go. So, all right, thanks so much, Ron. A pleasure meeting you face to face finally.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.